Good day, everyone. My name is Jasami Aruta from Group 1, and together with my group mates, we will be reporting about web services and Simple Object Access Protocol, or SOAP. Let's start with web service definition. A web service is a software system identified by a URI whose public interfaces and bindings are defined and described using XML. Its definition can be discovered by other software systems. These systems may then interact with the web service in a manner prescribed by its definition, using XML-based messages conveyed by Internet protocols. The messaging system uses a standardized XML. The basic services platform is XML and HTTP. All the standard web services work using SOAP, UDDI, and WSDL. A web service enables communication among various applications by using open standards such as HTML, XML, WSDL, and SOAP. It takes the help of XML to tag the data, SOAP to transfer a message, and WSDL to describe the availability of service. Service-oriented architecture, or SOA, is a style of design that guides an organization during all aspects of creating and using business services. Web services are consistent with established SOA. As shown in the figure, the web service component here are the service and service descriptions, while the rows are service provider and service requesters. The basic web services architectures define an interaction between software agents as an exchange of messages between service requesters and service providers. Requesters are software agents that request the execution of service, while providers are software agents that provide a service. Agents can be both service requesters and providers. Providers are responsible for publishing a description of the services they provide, and requesters must be able to find the descriptions of the services, and the web service operations are the publish, find, and interact. Web services, architectural extensions. The web service architecture support capabilities to present data. The core technologies implemented include HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, Ajax, Google Maps API based on jQuery, eChart API, and Bootstrap for the responsive web design. The main representation of information utilizes eChart and Google API, which support asynchronous communication with the server. It incorporates additional features and functionality by extending technologies and components defined within the basic architectures such as asynchronous messaging, attachment typical usage, associating binary data with SOAP messages, caching, message exchange pattern that describes a general pattern of message exchange between two services. For example, one-way request, response, publish, subscribe, and broadcast. Reliable message is an implementation of reliable messaging. One MEP is a series of requests between two nodes with an acknowledgement SOAP module. Next is the message confidentiality that can transmit the message via SSL or TLS, or have a SOAP module provides for encryption and decryption. Message integrity can have a SOAP module use digital signature, and the last one is session. This is the conceptual architecture of service in stack. The discovery agencies contains the yellow stack which is discovery, publication, and inspection. The description contains business level agreements until XML schema, as well as the wire, wherein the green part contains the extension, packaging, and transport. For further discussion, each part will be tackled by the next reporter.
Hi, I'm Diggle Anferni Francis, and my topic is about the wire stack. So you can see there's a three categories inside the wire stack. The first is transport, wherein HTTP is the de facto, other may be supported. The second one is packaging, or SOAP is the de facto standard for XML messaging. And lastly, extensions, additional information attached to web services and messages. So there's a extension wherein SOAP features the packaging wherein connected to a mine, dime, SOAP, and lastly transport wherein HTTP, SMTP, and TCP are connected. So, next one, the description of the stack. It is actually a stack of description documents defined using SML schema. So inside the box, there's a business level agreement, service level agreements, composition, orchestration. That part's not fully specified because that's the part where we're going to put any information. So the next is the presentation, wherein the input output is rendering. Next, facts or assertion rules apply to a particular verb service. That part will enter into a policy. The next one is the implementation description or interface description, wherein minimum service description necessary to support interoperable web services. So, and lastly, the XML schema. So that's the proper description and a right description for a stack. As it goes by, a discovery of stack was made. So first of all, there's a discovery agencies wherein the discovery was made so it's about the stack. So after that, publication inserted, and lastly they inspect it. And until now, we're using a stack. So service can be published using a variety of mechanisms. Direct publish, description sent directly to requester. WSIL or HTTP GET retrieves descriptions from URL. And universal description, where discovery and integration UDDI registries a web-based distributed directory. Lastly, the service requester can be retrieved a service description at the design time, search by interface, or runtime by communication and QoS from a web page or URL. A service description repository, a simple service registry, or a UDDI registry discovery depends on how the services are published. So right now we're living in a modern world, and here's the technology so far. The WS technology is completely based on XML. Therefore, both the data format and the interaction protocols are XML-based. Customized XML or data format. SOAP, wherein communication protocol. WSDL, the interface definition language. WSIL or UDDI, standards for service discovery. The lowest level layers, the transport layers, should exploit some existing internet protocols like HTTP or SMTP. So technically, overall, we're living in an XML world, wherein XML is the one that we're using for us to proceed and to make sure that all the application from web design to application that they're all function properly. So thank you very much. That's my part, and please welcome for the next reporter.
What is XML? XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. Is used to describe data. XML is a simple tag-based language for describing information in a structured way. There are three basic elements of XML, which is the tags, attributes, and text. You will see the figure below shows where the basic elements are seen or located. This element identifies the type of data contained in the file. All XML elements must be properly terminated for an XML file to be considered well-formed. This means that a tag must be properly terminated with an opening and closing tag. What is XML used for? XML's primary function is to provide a simple text-based format for representing structured information according to the World Wide Web Consortium or company. W3C defines the XML standard and recommends its use for web content. XML enables sharing of structured information. XML is a format to store data along with its structure. This feature makes it useful for many things, including transferring data, formatting documents, creating layouts, and more. How does XML work? XML works by providing a predictable data format. XML is strict on formatting. If the formatting is off, program that process or display the encoded data will return an error. XML example. The following is an example of a simple XML file. The first line in this example, called the XML prologue or XML declaration, specifies the version of XML being used, as well as the character encoding scheme. This declaration, if present, must be the first line of the file. The prologue specifies that the file contains XML version 1.0 data, encoded using Unicode Transformation Format 8 encoding. Different character encoding can be used for different language character sets, but all XML files must be composed of Unicode characters. Additionally, XML works by providing properly formatted data that can be processed by programs designed to handle XML inputs. The logical structure of an XML file requires that all data in the file be encapsulated within an XML element called the root element or document element. This element identifies the type of data contained in the file. An example, the root element is library. The root element contains other elements that define the different parts of an XML document. In the example, the root element contains both elements, which consist of two elements, title and the author. What is an XML file? An XML file is a plain text file with a .xml file extension. XML files contain Unicode text and they can be opened with any application capable of reading text files. XML file extension is an XML data file. XML file can be edited either with a simple text editor or specialized XML editors. Any text editor can be used to open and edit an XML file.
I am Vivian Parom and I will be talking about how to work on XML in the Simple Object Access Protocol. How to work on XML. The tree-like structure of XML makes developers' life hard. In practice, there is not a standard way for editing and analyzing, but the best method depends on your need. Just choose among SAX, DOM, XSLT, XPath, or XML binding. SAX, or we can call it the callback-based parsers. Parsers are used to process XML documents. The parser examines the XML documents, checks for errors, and then validates it against a schema or DTE if it's a validating parser. Or you can also choose DOM or Document Object Model. This provides an API that allows the developer to add, edit, move or remove nodes at any point on the tree in order to create an application. Or you may select XSLT. It is used to define the transformation rules to be applied on the target XML document. XSLT style sheet is written in XML format. XSLT processor takes the XSLT style sheet and applies the transformation rules on the target XML document. and then generates a formatted document in the form of XML, HTML, or text format. This formatted document is then utilized by XSLT formatter to generate the actual output, which is to be displayed to the end user. Or you may use XPath. It is a syntax for describing notes in an XML document. In some ways, an XPath expression is identical to a SQL query used to pick records from a database. Rather, you might use XML binding. It is a process of representing information in an XML document as an object in computer memory. With XML data binding, applications access XML data direct from the object instead of using the DOM to retrieve it from the XML file. Simple Object Access Protocol, or SOAP. It is the communication protocol for XML web services. It is a specification that defines the XML format for messages. SOAP provides compatibility by supplying an XML format that can be sent as plain text via HTTP or any other protocol that can send XML text. Because HTTP and XML are widely supported, HOAP may be used as a remoting protocol in almost any solution. SOAP is a technology to support the exchange of XML-coded messages over a transport protocol such as HTTP and SMTP. SOAP specification defines what an HTTP message that contains a SOAP message looks like. This HTTP binding is important because HTTP is supported by almost all current operating systems. Since HTTP is a core protocol of the web, most organizations have a network infrastructures that supports HTTP and people who understands how to manage it already. A SOAP runtime engine basically adds a XML envelope to an existing XML document. The XML document's envelope element identifies it as a SOAP message. The header element that contains header information, the body element that contains call and response information, and the fault element containing errors and status information.
Self-encoding. Dealing directly with XML messages is not easy. Therefore, SOA provides RPC emulation technology. The result developers work with web services like with traditional RPC, example, Corba, Deacon, and DCE. The RPC emulation is named self-encoding. Fundamentally, it is a set of rules to map a procedure invocation to an XML document. Self-encoding is an extension of SOA framework specification that defines how a data value should be encoded in an XML format. RPC is an inter-process communication technology that allows a computer process to cause a subroutine or procedure to execute in another address space. As you can see, we have example of service requests. According to the rules of SOA encoding, the first level in the SOA body is method name. The get time is the argument identifiers. The argument values, which are found in the third level element and are location equal to USA. And the argument type, which are found in the attribute XSI type. Web Service Description Language. WSDL is a standard format to describe a web service description style. A WSDL document is composed by two sections, which is an abstract interface section and a deployment section. An abstract interface section, like in traditional IDL, it defines the signatures of procedures, RPC style or messages, document style. Second, a deployment section, it defines the service location and the supported transport protocols. In Fundamentally, a client uses the WSDL to create the stub or do dynamically decode message. Web Service Introspection Language WSIL and UDDI are the standard way to search web services discovery stuff. WSIL is the decentralized approach. Fundamentally, a WSIL document contains a directory of web services deployed on a server. It is analogous to the index.html document for web pages. In the future, specific crawlers will be browsed in the internet looking for WSIL documents like Google does today for web pages.
This is an example of web service introspection language. The tag name is called service name. If you can see the location is called location and description. And also the tag link is where the user or admin can access the system. Is called link to the another WSIL page. This is an example of web service introspection language. The tag name is called service name. If you can see the location is called location and description. And also the tag link is where the user or admin can access the system. Is called link to the another WSIL page. UDDI for the electronic yellow pages, save for the phone book but online. With the help of UDDI, beside, it can display the description of the business, phone numbers, and so on. This help it making it easier to find the service of another business. WSDL is just like what it means. It tells the client what a web service does. With the help of WSDL, it provides the client the information it needs and the requirements for connecting and using web services. WSDL, so XML is to be read by any programming language such as HTML, Java, Python, and so on. And because WSDL is already XML, it reduces the code to use because it's easy to translate to Net, SAP, Python, and so on.
To create project from WSDL, just click File, New SOAP Project, or you can use the key Ctrl plus F. So you can make a new SOAP file project. In the dialog box, specify the following URL in the initial WSDL field. Leave the default settings and click OK. So all the required code to access this web service, it will be added. SOAP UI will load the specified WSDL and parse its contents into the following object model. So I will give you a tips. SOAP UI saves the WSDL file to a cache to avoid unnecessary network requests when you work with a project. If you want the SOAP UI to always use a remote WSDL file, just set the cache definition property to false. And that's it. Thank you.
After creating, next is generating code for your WSDL. WSDL stands for Web Service Description Language. To generate code, right-click the service in the Navigator panel and select the desired framework from the Generate Code pop-up menu. You can choose any framework. For example, if you select Apache CXF framework, you will see the following dialog. Specify desired settings and click Generate. After clicking Generate, SOPUI will launch the corresponding command line tool. Note: you must specify the right path to corresponding tool on the Tools page to execute it successfully, and then click OK.